What do you do when life throws you a curveball that forces you to reevaluate your path? For Amy Daughters, a native of Houston, Texas, that moment came when her husband's job relocated them to the UK. Without a work visa, she found herself with a newfound freedom that sparks an unexpected journey into the world of letter writing. As a wife, mother, author, speaker, and freelance writer, Amy's story is one of resilience, connection, and the transformative power of written words. Today on this episode, she'll share how a simple act of letter writing not only changed her life, but also deepened her understanding of community and support in times of hardship.
Sometimes life gives us lemons. Sometimes it gives us lemonade. Other times it gives us something entirely out of left field that makes us say, WTF. But no matter what obstacles come, there is most often a way out on the other side, and we are once again victorious. My name is Dr. Rowe, and you are listening to my podcast about resilience. Every guest shares a tragedy to triumph story to give listeners like you the inspiration to push through every single day. Listen now as my next guest shares how they were life-jacked.
Hi, Amy. Welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show. How are you?
I am doing wonderful, Dr. Rowe, and thank you so much for having me on. I am honored to be on your program.
Now, Amy, would you mind sharing just a little bit about your background and how you grew up for listeners, just to get to know you a little bit?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I grew up in the suburbs of the great city of Houston, and just a super, suburbia childhood in the 70s. So, a pre-cell phone, pre-internet. So we were outside frolicking in the pine trees in the heat, and went to high school north of Houston. Went off to Texas Tech University, got a business degree, came back to Houston, got a job in purchasing, got married, and then just started my career path and my family.
Well, this is most certainly an honor for me because I'm also a native Houstonian, and I never get to interview anyone from the same city, my hometown. So this is such an honor, and it's just a fortunate opportunity to be able to interview someone so close to home.
Yeah, no, it's great for me. I mean, H-Town forever, 610 loop. I'm excited. So we're repping the city today. So thank you, Dr. Rowe.
Love it. Yes, let's rep the city. Now, when your husband informed you that the family is going to have to move, what were your initial feelings?
Well, I was excited about our move to England because I thought, we were in our 30s. We had one kid. And I was like, this is going to be an adventure. And we kind of promised each other, we both had careers. We had both moved up in our careers. And I was seeing it as such a positive thing. And we were like, no matter how interesting and weird it gets or hard, we're going to stick it out for the 3 years they asked us to go over for. So my initial thought was, hey, this is going to be a grand adventure.
Nice. And so then was there ever a moment that once you got to the UK, you were like, oh no, what did we just do?
Right. No, for sure. Because what I did realize, it was a great adventure as a history lover. Here's all this hands-on history. Here we are with this long-term opportunity in another country, but we knew we were going to come home. But I had worked, all the way and built myself up in this purchasing career. And then I was like, wait a second, what am I going to do? My kid went off to school in this village. And it was, I went, the first thing I did was, like I said, I liked history. So I went to the local university and started taking history classes. But I was like, wait a second, this isn't enough. What am I going to do with all this time? And I'd always written on the side. Like I always reread my emails at work over and over again, thinking I was hilarious or profoundly intelligent. Or, I'd written short stories growing up and so I thought, I was out of desperation. I was like, you know what? I have an internet connection. I'm going to try to write. And so that intersection of me being desperate in a foreign country with too much time on my hands and me having an interest in writing really pivoted my entire career without me planning it one bit.
No, I love to hear that because writing is such a special art, and you can either have your way with words or not, right?
Right. And I think I felt like maybe there was something there, but I don't think I ever would have taken the time to develop it without that, life-changing move to the UK.
So thinking of that life-changing move to the UK, so talk about the moment that you decided to write seriously, because like you said, you've been writing on the side, you've been writing since you were younger, but then there was a moment when you were like, you know what, I think I want to do this for real.
Well, because I was kind of messing around, because I think when we're not, especially in today's culture, when we're not degreed or educated or formally some way accredited to do something, we don't really take ourselves seriously, which is unfortunate because I think we miss opportunities because of that. I spent the early part of my life writing about college football, which is interesting because that's always been a passion of mine. And I had somebody buy a piece early on. They're like, this is really good. I think you have a real future on this. You want to discuss having a contract. This was with the early version of the Bleacher Report. And I was like, are you kidding me? And it took having one person take me seriously to be like, wait a second, maybe I should take this seriously. That was the moment where I was like, wait a second, I think I can turn this into something more than just a sideline for the 3 years that I'm over there. But it's interesting that sometimes we need that validation or that, that punch in our card to say, hey, this is something you can do.
So when you were thinking about writing, seriously, so you had been writing about football. So was it that you were now going to write about sports or the football that's over in the UK, which we call soccer?
No, yeah, I was going to write American college football. That's what I started writing about. That's when I first started gaining traction to get paid for writing. So it was almost like a dream scenario because I'd always been passionate about college football. And now I had, I took a Xerox took a copy of that first check and mailed it to my dad. And I was like, Dad, literally, you could do anything in life because somebody just paid me to do this.
Love that. Now, of course, being a woman, right? And now you're writing about college football. So I just have to ask this because that's what resilience is, right? When you push against the grain and you are able to move forward. So was there any pushback as you were submitting your article because you were a woman?
Oh, absolutely. And the pushback wasn't from the editors or the owners of the website. I found, by and large, throughout my whole entire career, those people, and mostly guys, by and large, mostly males, have been so super supportive. And I would think that it's an advantage for me from that side of it because they're like, oh, here's a woman who writes about it and by and large, knows what she's talking about, is credible. And so that was something that they could use, to their advantage. But where I really got the pushback was from the readers and the listeners. Because you get the mail, because it was something if somebody disagreed with me, it gave them an avenue to lash out at me. Hey, look, get back in the kitchen, you're a woman. And this was in the early 2000s when I started, like say 2005, 2006. So we progressed a long way from there in the sports world as of 2024. But I got a lot of that, a whole lot of feedback about being a woman in a negative way.
No, absolutely. I call that the Twitter courage. You're in your mama's basement and you have all these, things and opinions that people like to say about you, but they really wouldn't say them to your face.
No, they wouldn't. But it makes you tough. And like you said, it does create a resilience. Because when the first couple of times you go show everybody, you get upset, and all your friends get mad, and then you just keep pushing, and then it just made me better. I backed up my arguments. I got better with statistics. Not saying I was wrong to start with. I just got tougher. And my arguments became stronger, and it made me a better sports journalist, a better writer, and just a stronger person. And that's what I love about your resilient topic.
No, absolutely. Because it is hard. It is hard to be faced with the judgment from others because what you're doing is pursuing a passion, something that you love. And when you hear someone say something in adverse of that, right? Because you're not trying to be, like the ultimate. I mean, or penultimate, or maybe you are, but you know, but you just want to write about something that you love as a passion, it's a hobby. And for some people to come along and try to tear that down in a negative way when you're just innocent doing it, it just really could disheartening at times.
It is. And I think any of us who put ourselves out there, you include, I mean, you put yourself out there with the podcast and the things you do. We open ourselves up to that. But it does end up making us stronger. And I think it makes us believe in our message, whatever that is, even more, firmly with more, with more heart, because it forces us in a position to question ourselves. And that ultimately can be a good thing, a positive thing.
No, for sure. So obviously you were feeling this pull, right? Like this desire to do something different because you had a solid career in purchasing, right? So what made you decide that you want to transition from a career in purchasing, which had a solid foundation, very safe, to writing full time?
It just was my passion. I found out that I could, but then as a mom, I mean, that was a component too. I mean, I would have gone back, but I found that I could, do about the same. Frankly, it was more upside because I had creative control and do something that I really loved. And I would have, without that pause in England for 3 years, I never would have seen that. I don't know what happened with what would have happened with the purchasing journey if I would have continued on that. But the writing journey took my life in a totally different direction. I think that's where I was meant to go all along.
So were there any challenges at first?
Well, I think it goes back, for sure, it goes back to me feeling like, I had a business degree. And I felt like I didn't belong in the writing world. And I think especially as a woman, we look at ourselves and we want, again, for someone to tell us we belong in the arena that we're in. And I've learned over and over again, and it's another, resilient story, is that I learned over and over again, just by keeping my head down, learning and making mistakes and plodding forward and getting better, that I could, make a niche in writing. And I did. I turned it into a career with 2 books and a lot of stories in a freelance career. And, I did that just by keeping my head down and writing every day. It certainly didn't happen overnight.
Wow, that's so amazing. Now, let's talk about this phenomenal writing journey that you have. So one day you were, I'm assuming, just perusing Facebook, scrolling on Facebook, and you connected with a friend. Can you talk a little bit about this friend that you connected with?
Right. I met this friend in 1986 at a summer camp in Texas, and we spent probably 6 weeks together. That was it. We were both loud and thought we were funny. And so I think we connected in that way. But as far as like solid, lucid memories, I don't have a lot. But so this was 30 years later. We did 30 years doing life completely separately till I see her in like 2014 on Facebook. I friend her because it doesn't mean anything. And I immediately find out she has 5 kids. The youngest, her only son, had cancer, and he was at St. Jude in Memphis battling for his life.
Oh my goodness. Wow. And, and I understand, how amazing it is to connect with someone that, like you said, you haven't seen in 20 years, 30 years almost. And I get that because there are so many friends that I've made over the years and I lost track of them. But when Facebook came out, it was like, oh my gosh, this is such an amazing, invention. It just connected everyone, just from different, towns, different countries, different, decades. And so it's just such a phenomenal invention for Facebook to come out. Now, after you ran into, well, not literally ran into the friend, but once you connected with her, you decided to write her.
Right. Yeah. And it was like literally, Dr. Rowe, it was not some intentional thing. I hadn't been writing letters for years. I wasn't a proponent of letter writing. I wasn't pen pals with people across the world. I was literally sitting at my desk one day and I was thinking about her, as a human being, as a mom, as a whatever, I was just so struck by her story And I didn't know anything about her really, but I was like, you know what I'm going to start doing? It was like a thunderbolt. I was like, I'm just going to start writing. Her name was Dana. Dana and her son Parker letters at St. Jude, just supportive letters, and mailing them to the Ronald McDonald House. And I was so invested in my idea, and it made no sense. It was ridiculous. I didn't know them. I hadn't read a letter in forever, but I just decided that's what I was going to do.
So now explain to me why you felt so compelled to write a letter, right? Because you were already connected on Facebook. Facebook didn't have the messenger piece where you could just write a message to somebody. So why not just send a quick little private message and then be done with it?
That's a great question. And I kind of think that was fate or God or however you want to, the universe or however you want to frame that. But I think I did it if there was a technical reason I did it. I think I did it because it seemed less intrusive. Like if I write these cards and drop them in the mailbox, then she doesn't have to respond to them if she gets them at all. Then I'm being involved without asking her to respond to me right away, without looking like a stalker, because it seemed so direct if I was just going to Facebook message her. And did it seem even sincere, or her kid is actually fighting cancer, or do I want her to reply to me, or what do I want from her? I think the whole letter writing, because I was uncomfortable with, like I knew it was kind of ridiculous that I was going to reach out in some way. I felt like that was less intrusive. The letters would have been less intrusive and just enjoyed in their own time, or not enjoyed.
As you were writing these letters to your friend Dana,
right?
Did you feel any intense emotions while you were writing those letters to her?
Oh, absolutely. Because, I wrote the letters for 8 to 10 weeks to her and Parker. And it was, I'm praying for you. I'm thinking about you. We're thinking about you. And then I just started slowly introducing my life to her. Then what else do you say to someone you hadn't spoken to in 30 years? And then so I thought about her fight all the time because, writing a letter made her seem more human to me, because otherwise she was just a Facebook friend. But as you handwrite somebody a letter and mail it to them, they become more and more real to you. And as the weeks rolled on, I could tell that Parker wasn't doing well. And then the tragedy of the story is about 10 weeks into writing the two of them, Parker passes away at only 15 years old. And so that takes the emotions to the next level, because I sat and thought, well, this has nothing to do with me. And this is the most devastating, absolutely devastating thing that can happen to somebody. So what do I do? So I finished the Dolan's card and I sat down and I was like, so what do I do? And so I just kept writing. Only now I kind of went even crazier, and I kind of looked up her husband's office address in Louisiana where she lives, and I just started mailing my letters there. Every week I continued to write her. So then the emotion you're talking about was even heavier, because I knew that here was this grieving mother. I thought it was kind of crazy, but I just kept writing her every single week.
Wow. It's almost like you just had something speak over you and you just took on this intense sense of responsibility, but it was in the most kind and the most sincere and genuine way. I mean, awesome, Amy. Like, how remarkable of a person are you? Like, I can feel just even through this conversation that this was something that you were just supposed to do. And what a great sense of responsibility. And I think that you carried out the task very, very well.
Well, I appreciate that. And I do, I realized I was the one writing letters, but I do think there was something driving me. Like like you said, I was supposed to do this, because I really came in not intending to make a difference to Dana or to anyone else. But the trajectory of the story just took a life on its own. And I kind of hung on for dear life. And really the person who's most enhanced by this entire story, is me. Because then, we can continue with the story, but, I continued to write, Dana every week. And then eventually Dana started writing me back, which was magical, because the whole story would have stopped right there had Dana had not begun to write me back. So that kicks off 2 years of us just writing exclusively. That's the only way we communicate for 2 years. In like 2015 and 16, we just wrote each other letters. She wrote about her grief, because I was a safe spot to deposit that in. I wrote about my entire life, looking out from the outside in. It was just this profound exchange of words where we ended up trusting each other, not talking, not texting, no electronic anything. We would say stuff like, oh, I haven't told anybody this, but I can tell you. And it was the most unfounded trust because I didn't, and the beautiful thing was, Dr. Rowe, we didn't know how we voted. We didn't know what religious beliefs we ascribed to. We didn't know how we felt about gender issues. We knew none of that. All we knew was we cared about each other almost desperately because we had opened up in the letters where there was no, you didn't have to feel like you had to respond to anything. It was just this vacuum of space where we could share.
I love it. And that speaks to the power of connection, right? You just think about, like you said, you didn't discuss what your political views, your religious views. You didn't discuss any of that, right? You just connected on the most basic, fundamental level in writing letters. Now, after you started this initial connection with your friend, did you have any idea what this was going to unlock in you? Because then you decided to write to 600, not six. Listeners, I need you to understand that Amy wrote to her friend initially and then decided to write to 600 of her Facebook friends. Did you have any idea that just writing to Dana was going to turn into this?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, if you would have told me that before it happened, I would have said that was crazy. But what happened was, Dr. Rowe, it was so, like I told you, it was so profound that it just changed. It just really just changed me. Just writing letters to this person on a regular basis and her writing it back. It changed me the way that I sat back and I thought, if this can happen with this one random Facebook friend, I didn't really know where she lived when I reconnected with her. I didn't know anything about her. And if this one random girl could turn my life on its side, then what about all these other people on the Facebook friends list? And this is so relatable because we all have this list of these hundreds of people that we know to different degrees at different times in our life. What about all these people? So I was like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put all their names in a box. I'm going to get some stationery. I'm going to start pulling them out. And I'm going to write all of them. And I never really thought, I for real did not think I was going to finish the project when I started it. I journaled the whole thing. And I kept stats because that's who I am. But I never really thought I'd finish. But when I started writing those letters, and I realized the power of a handwritten letter, and I realized that I was going to live the most incredible part of my life in this letter writing process. And it took me 18 months to write the 600 letters, and that is absolutely the best version of me that there will ever be.
Now, through this process of letter writing, how do you feel that it changed your perspective on relationship and community?
Well, I'll tell you what, it really, I came up with a formula to write these letters only, and again, I wasn't doing this intentionally. I just did it to fulfill my goal of writing all the letters, because that's what I was focused on. But when I sat down, if you think about sitting down and write somebody who you haven't talked to in 20, 30 years or whatever, what are you even going to say to them? Well, the first step over and over again was I would sit and look at their Facebook profile, and I started to treat each of these 600 people like individuals. And that sounds pretty simplistic, but it was, again, another profound experience. Because like, let's say you and I, Dr. Rowe, went to high school together. Well, I would look at your page and I kind of knew what you were doing because I saw you on the news feed. But I'd be like, oh my gosh, Dr. Rowe, look at the podcast, look at the books, look at the support, the coaching, look at all the things she's doing. So the first thing I would write in your letter, I'd first say, this is what I'm doing. I'm writing all my Facebook friends a letter because of Dana and Parker. They'll be like, Dr. Rowe, my friend from high school, you're killing it. Look at you. And so I'd say, I'm so proud of you. You are incredible. The things you've done. And then maybe I've seen that you'd experienced a loss I didn't know anything about, or you were struggling with a health issue, or your parents were struggling with a health issue. Well, I would offer support, or I would offer condolences, or I would offer congratulations. And so that's one part of it. So I realized I'd connected to all these amazing people that I got connected to at the right time in my life. And then the second part of the letter was always the same, because then I would sit back and think of that person. I'd be like, Dr. Rowe, how was my interactions with Dr. Rowe? What did I do? Did I dance with her at a wedding? No, I went to high school with her. And what was that interaction like? And I'd be like, oh, Dr. Rowe, she's the one who stood next to me by the payphone in high school when that guy broke up with me. And I was devastated. She came up to me and put her hands on my shoulders. And she was like, Amy, you're not going to let this define you. Your life is going to be amazing. You're going to have amazing relationships. And you're going to remember this as a point that was a gift because it turned you in another direction. I'd be like, Dr. Rowe, I never even thanked you for that. So then I'd be like, you know what? You were my friend in high school, and I never thanked you for that. Thank you for doing that for me. You made a difference in my life. So you talk about, Dr. Rowe, you talk about getting to say that to somebody, those series of things, 600 times. My grateful meter went right off the charts, and I realized that I was connected to all these amazing people. And there was so much hope looking forward and looking backwards because I was engaged in these real relationships with these incredible, flawed, beautiful, messed up, perfect human beings.
Wow. Wow. This is just such an inspiring story. Like, I just love this so much. So, although you were sending out your light to the world, right? Now, were there any surprising responses that you received back?
Oh, yeah. I mean, over and over again, I had people who, you know, how we have our, you know, it's, I found out over and over again that I had assumed so many things that were wrong about people, not because I'm a bad person, but because I had people either categories wrong, like I think a friend was a high school friend, but she was really a camp friend, but and then there was the assumptions I had about people, my perceptions of them, like, oh my God, her life is perfect. And then she would write and say, I'm suffering, you know, like with a personality disorder. I really need a friend right now, even though it looked like she was sipping champagne on a yacht. Over and over again, that happened. But then I had a girl tell me, you know, I wrote a girl who I'd always been kind of intimidated by at school who seemed really perfect. And I was like, you know, I always just felt like you were one of my classiest friends. I always felt like I was, you know, I couldn't even believe you were friends with me. And she wrote me back and she goes, I always thought, you know, maybe you seemed standoffish because you didn't like me. And that just blew my mind. I was kind of intimidated by her. And it came across to her that she didn't like me. And I was in awe of her and told her that in the letter, and it made her feel so good. And that just really surprised me. I'm so glad she was honest with me because it made me realize that my perceptions of people and their perceptions of me aren't always in line. But there's something so positive about finding out the truth in that because we don't know everything. You know, and again, the connection was the most important part as to what you said earlier.
Now, did you receive anything surprising back that was a negative response?
You know, the negative responses were very few and far between, only because the project was, you know, had such a heart to it. And just a simple act of writing another person is so intentional that people received it in that way. I had one person, somebody who had been married to my father-in-law, unfriend me after the letter. That was the most unfortunate circumstance. I'm not completely sure why. I don't know that she was offended by the letter. I think she was offended that I'd written the letter after she felt like I had deliberately lost touch with her. So it was kind of a complicated issue. And then I had one person who I'd gone to high school with who I had actually, you know, because you're opening up a can of worms with each of these relationships, and these are real relationships. You have to be careful about what you say. And I try to be careful, but you know, when you're offering the hand of friendship to someone, and this was somebody who ended up to be, they were troubled at the time, and we met in person, and we had a very, you know, dramatic evening where this person was very troubled, and I kind of lost control of the situation. I mean, because these are real relationships with real people, and I was very disappointed in myself through that. But again, that's, you know, real people, real relationships, and I was opening the door. I think the most surprising negative takeaway for me, other than those small and that one bigger instance, was that if you're going to open up 600 doors to 600 real human people, you can't keep up with that. So I walked away from a lot of this feeling guilty because I could not keep up with it. I could not keep up with, you know, people who needed a real friend to talk to. I could go one or two rounds, but by then, you know, by the end of this whole thing, I was done.
No, I definitely understand that. Now, in this letter writing, how do you feel it contributed to building resilience in yourself, or if someone else wanted to take on a task such as this one, how do you think it can contribute to building resilience?
Well, I think for me, you know, the 600 letters over the top, and it taught me something about myself, about my own resilience and my own, kind of stick to it. It was a quality I had that I didn't know had an abundant amount of, but I think that, for me, it built resilience in me. To this day, I still write at least one letter a day because it made me realize that in this world where there's so much negative, that I really can do something positive that can give somebody else hope every single day for about 73 cents and about 15 minutes of my time.
What advice would you give to someone looking to build their own resilience through either writing or any other type of creative outlet?
Well, I think, for me, I have to say that, if you look back at the core, like back to the beginning of the story where I wrote Dana, that was one small voice inside me telling me, hey, you should write her and Parker letters. Hey, why don't you write her and Parker letters? And I think we all have that one little voice in us that tells us to do something. Sometimes it's something crazy. Sometimes it's something that makes us feel like awkward. Well, my advice is to not only to listen to that small little voice that's telling us to do something, but to believe it, to believe the voice, and then to act on what the voice is telling you to do and not to give up. To every day put your feet on the ground and try to do what your inside of you is telling you what to do every single day, plodding along. And then one day you turn back and it's not a dumpster fire. It's this beautiful story that you couldn't believe had even happened. And it all started with listening and believing in the voice inside your head and heart.
Amy, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey with me and the listeners today on Life Jack through the podcast. Your story highlights the powerful connections we can foster through simple acts of kindness, like handwritten letters. It serves as a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we can find light and purpose through our passions. How can listeners find and connect?
Well, if you go to amydaughters.com, you can find out everything about me. But even better, my email address, there's a form you can connect with me. And then I have a physical mailing address. And I guarantee you, if you mail me a letter, I will write you back. But if that's not your deal and you want to connect with me, feel free to email me or message me. I've got a Facebook. All the links are on there, Instagram. And I would love to hear from anyone who wants to collaborate or chat or just connect.
Any last words of encouragement for the listeners?
I would just say, get a really small card from Walmart or Target. And a lot of times when people listen to my story, they think about somebody they want to write a letter to. And you can do it in 4 sentences. I just encourage everyone to go this week and write one small card, even if it's a Post-it note, and stick it on somebody's card or letter and send it to them and what happens next.
Amy, I appreciate your insights on resilience and the importance of surrounding ourselves with a supportive community, even from afar. I can't wait to see how your mission to inspire others through letter writing continues to unfold. Thank you so much for joining me on Life Jack the Resilience podcast. I wish you and your family nothing but blessings and abundance. Please take care.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rose. It's an honor to speak with you and your audience and be on your program.
Amy Daughters, everyone. Be sure to join me next time for more uplifting stories and insights on resilience. Until then, keep pushing forward, embrace the journey, and remember that every setback can lead to a greater comeback. Dr. Rowe, signing off.
You've reached the end of another episode of Life Jacked, the Resilience Podcast. Connect with me at www.lifejackedpodcast.com. Don't forget to sign up to the blog so you won't miss any events or episodes. Remember to live, love, laugh, learn, and then repeat. See you in the next episode.